The hospital called at 2 in the morning. Lily's heart was failing, and Carter Dalton had 72 hours to find $500,000 or watch his daughter die. He stood in the CEO's office at dawn, still wearing his electrician's uniform, staring at the man who held his daughter's life in a signed check. Richard Carter didn't look at him when he spoke, just slid a photograph across the mahogany desk. A woman in a wedding dress, her face completely hidden behind a thick white veil that fell like a curtain between her and the world. "My daughter Victoria," the old man said, his voice flat as a death sentence. "The accident left her disfigured. She hasn't removed that veil in 5 years, hasn't left the house in 3. The veil in the photo seemed to glow under the office lights, pristine and untouchable, like a shroud on someone still breathing. Richard's next words came slow, calculated. "Marry her. Give her a husband before I die. In return, your daughter gets her surgery." Carter looked at the veiled woman in the photograph, then at his phone. Lily's last text still on the screen. "Dad, am I going to be okay?" He didn't believe in trading one life for another. But when the check slid closer, he realized he'd never actually know what was behind that veil until it was too late to walk away. Carter had been working at Carter Industries for 6 years before the layoffs came. He'd never met Richard Carter in person, just seen him in company newsletters. A man in expensive suits who signed paychecks and fired departments with the same signature. When the pink slip arrived 3 months ago, Carter took it without argument. Electricians were replaceable. Single fathers drowning in medical debt were even more so. He'd found work doing service calls, fixing broken circuits in basement apartments, and rewiring old houses where the owners paid cash and didn't ask questions. It wasn't enough. It was never enough. Lily had been born with a ventricular septal defect, a hole in her heart that the doctor said would need surgery eventually. Eventually had arrived 6 weeks ago when she collapsed at school during recess. The surgery would cost $497,000. Carter's insurance covered 30%. He'd already sold his truck, his tools, everything that wasn't nailed down. He was still $348,000 short. The hospital gave him options, payment plans that would take 30 years, fundraising campaigns that might raise $10,000 if he was lucky, experimental programs that required waiting lists he didn't have time for. Lily had 2 months, maybe 3. After that, her heart would give out completely. The call from Richard Carter's office came on a Tuesday morning while Carter was replacing a circuit breaker in a coffee shop basement. The voice on the phone was professional, female, and oddly insistent. "Mr. Carter would like to see you. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. It's regarding your daughter's medical situation." Carter almost hung up. He didn't trust Charity, didn't trust people who knew things about his life they shouldn't know. But desperation has a way of making men answer phones they should ignore. He showed up at dawn, still wearing his work clothes, because he didn't own anything else that fit anymore. The weight loss had been gradual, skipping meals to save money, forgetting to eat when Lily was in pain. He looked like a man made of wire and exhaustion. Richard Carter's office occupied the entire top floor of the building Carter used to maintain. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the kind of view that cost more per month than Carter made in a year. Richard himself sat behind a desk that could have doubled as a dining table, his hands folded like a man about to deliver a verdict. He was older than his photos suggested, mid-60s maybe, with the kind of gaunt face that came from illness rather than diet. His eyes were sharp, though, measuring Carter with the same precision Carter used to measure voltage. "Mr. Dalton," Richard said without preamble, "you're probably wondering why I asked you here." Carter stayed standing. Sitting felt like surrender. "You know about my daughter. I know everything about you, where you work, what you owe, how long she has." Richard's voice carried no emotion, just facts delivered like weather reports. He slid the photograph across the desk. "This is my daughter, Victoria. 29 years old, brilliant before the accident. Now she lives in the east wing of my house and refuses to see anyone. The woman in the photo stood alone in what looked like a garden, her wedding dress pristine white, her veil so thick it could have been a mask. Carter couldn't see a single feature of her face, just the vague shape of a head beneath fabric. 5 years ago, there was a fire. She was trapped for 40 minutes before the firefighters pulled her out. The burns, Richard paused, and for the first time his voice cracked slightly. The doctors did what they could. She's alive. But what she sees in the mirror, he didn't finish. Carter stared at the photograph. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm dying. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. I have 6 months, maybe less. Richard's hands tightened on the desk edge. I can't leave her alone. She has no friends, no family besides me. The household staff are loyal, but they're not permanent. When I'm gone, she'll be completely isolated. He looked up at Carter with eyes that might have been pleading if they belonged to a different kind of man. I need someone who understands loss, someone who knows what it means to protect the people you love, even when it costs you everything. You want me to marry your daughter. Carter said it flat, not a question. I want you to give her a reason not to disappear. Richard pulled out a checkbook, wrote something with deliberate slowness, and tore the check free. He placed it on top of the photograph. $500,000. This covers your daughter's surgery, all of it, plus enough left over for recovery costs and whatever else she needs. He slid another paper across the desk. This is a prenuptial agreement. You marry Victoria. You live in the house. You provide companionship. Nothing more is required. The marriage doesn't need to be consummated, doesn't need to be romantic. Just be there. After 2 years, if you want to leave, you're free to go. You keep the money. Victoria keeps her dignity. Carter picked up the check. The paper felt too light for what it represented. What if she doesn't want this? She doesn't want anything anymore. That's the problem. Richard's voice dropped lower. I've tried therapists, doctors, specialists. She refuses to see them. She won't leave her room unless it's the middle of the night when no one's watching. She eats alone, sleeps alone, exists alone. I'm asking you to exist near her. That's all. He leaned forward slightly. You have 72 hours to decide. After that, the offer disappears. And so does your daughter's chance. Carter looked at the check again, then at the photograph of the veiled woman. He thought about Lily in her hospital bed, the way she tried to smile when he visited, even though he could see the fear behind her eyes. He thought about the last 8 years of raising her alone after her mother left, the way he'd learned to braid hair from YouTube videos and cook meals that didn't come from boxes. He thought about the night she was born, how small she'd been in his hands, how he'd promised her she'd never be alone. The check was a lie. The marriage was a transaction. But Lily was real, and she was running out of time. I have conditions, Carter said finally. Richard raised an eyebrow. You're negotiating? Lily can't know this is a deal. She has to think it's real. I won't have her growing up thinking her father sold himself. Carter's voice stayed steady. And I work. I don't care if you're paying me. I'm not sitting in your house doing nothing. I'll find a job, part-time, something. I pay my own way. Agreed. Anything else? If Victoria wants me gone at any point, I'm gone. No questions. She doesn't get trapped in this any more than she already is. Carter met Richard's eyes. I won't be another cage. Richard studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You're better than I thought you'd be, Mr. Dalton. Most men would have taken the money and run by now. He stood up, extending a hand. We have a deal? Carter shook it. The old man's grip was weak, dying already. When? The wedding is in 1 week. I've already made arrangements. Small ceremony, just family and witnesses. You'll move into the house the day after. Richard pulled out a business card, wrote an address on the back. This is where you'll meet Victoria. Tomorrow evening. 7 p.m. I'll introduce you. After that, you're on your own." Carter pocketed the card and the check. He walked out of the office building into morning light that felt too bright, too normal for what had just happened. He'd just agreed to marry a woman he'd never met. A woman who hid behind a veil because she couldn't bear to be seen. He'd agreed because a little girl with a broken heart needed her father to do the impossible. Again. He called the hospital from his truck. "This is Carter Dalton, my daughter Lily. I need to schedule her surgery. I have the money." The nurse on the other end sounded genuinely happy for him. Carter hung up and sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at nothing. He'd saved Lily's life. He just wasn't sure what he'd done to his own. The house was enormous, the kind of place Carter had only seen in magazines left in waiting rooms. It sat behind iron gates and manicured gardens, all white stone and tall windows that reflected the sunset like mirrors. A woman in a housekeeper's uniform answered the door before Carter could knock. She was in her 60s. Gray hair pulled back, eyes that sized him up in 3 seconds flat. "Mr. Dalton, I'm Helen Patterson. I manage the household." She stepped aside to let him in. "Mr. Carter is waiting in the library. Miss Victoria will join you shortly." The library was all dark wood and leather chairs, the kind of room designed to intimidate. Richard stood by the window, looking frailer than he had in the office. "You came." "I said I would." Carter stayed near the door, feeling like an intruder. "She doesn't know about the money. I told her I found someone willing to marry her out of kindness." Richard's voice was quiet. "She didn't believe me. She thinks you're being paid. I didn't confirm or deny. Let her think what she wants." He turned from the window. "She'll be down in a moment. Don't stare. Don't ask about the accident. Don't try to see under the veil. She'll leave if you do." Carter nodded. He heard footsteps on the stairs, soft and hesitant. The door opened, and Victoria entered. She wore a simple dress, dark blue, long sleeves despite the warmth. The veil was exactly as thick as in the photograph, white fabric that fell past her shoulders and rendered her face completely invisible. She moved carefully, like someone navigating a room full of obstacles only she could see. Richard gestured between them. "Victoria, this is Carter Dalton." "Carter, my daughter." Carter didn't extend his hand, didn't move, just nodded slightly. "Hello." Victoria's head tilted, the veil shifting but revealing nothing. When she spoke, her voice was surprisingly clear, younger than he'd expected. "You're the electrician." Not a question. "I was. I do service work now. And you agreed to this." Still not a question, but there was something underneath. Disbelief, maybe, or suspicion. "I did." "Why?" The word came sharp, challenging. Carter considered lying, considered saying something about loneliness or second chances, or any of the other lines that might make this easier. Instead, he said, "Because my daughter needs me to." Victoria went very still. The veil didn't move. "Your daughter. Lily. She's 8. She has a heart condition. The surgery costs more than I'll make in 10 years. Carter kept his voice level. "Your father offered to help. This is the price." The silence stretched out. Richard looked like he wanted to interrupt, but didn't. Finally, Victoria said, "At least you're honest." She moved to one of the chairs, sat down with the kind of careful precision that spoke of years practicing how to move without being seen clearly. Most people would pretend this was something else. Romance, charity, fate. The last word carried bitter amusement. "You're doing this for money. I'm doing this because my father won't die peacefully otherwise. We both know what this is." "And what is it?" Carter asked. "A transaction. Nothing more." Victoria's hands folded in her lap, hidden beneath the veil's edge. "I won't pretend to be a wife. You won't pretend to be a husband. We'll live in the same house and stay out of each other's way. When my father is gone and your conscience is clear, you can leave. Does that work for you?" Carter thought about it. Thought about Lily asking if her new stepmother would like her. Thought about living in a house where two people circled each other like strangers. Thought about the woman behind the veil who spoke about herself, like she'd already stopped existing. "It works," he said finally, "but I have one condition." "More conditions?" Richard muttered. Carter ignored him. "Lily visits, regularly. She's not part of this deal, but she's part of my life. If that's a problem, we stop now." Victoria's head turned toward Richard, then back to Carter. "The child? She doesn't know this is fake?" "No, and she won't." Another long pause. Then Victoria stood. "Fine. Bring her. I'll stay in my wing. She won't see me unless absolutely necessary." She moved toward the door, then stopped. "Mr. Dalton, my father thinks this will help me. It won't. I'm not a project to be fixed, or a problem to be solved. I'm a ghost in this house, and ghosts don't come back to life just because someone signs a marriage certificate. Remember that." She left before Carter could respond. Richard sighed heavily. "She's angry. She should be. You're making decisions for her like she's a child. She's my child, and I'm dying. Would you do differently?" Richard's voice carried no challenge, just exhaustion. Carter thought about Lily in the hospital, about every decision he'd made for her when she was too young or too sick to make them herself. "No," he admitted. "I'd do exactly this. Doesn't make it right." The wedding happened in the house's garden on a Saturday morning. Carter wore a suit Helen had altered to fit him, simple black that felt like costume. Lily sat in the front row, beaming despite the oxygen tube in her nose. Her surgery was scheduled for Monday, but she'd insisted on coming. "You're getting married, Dad. I have to be there." She'd been thrilled when Carter told her, asking 100 questions about Victoria that Carter couldn't answer. He'd settled on, "She's shy, very shy. You'll meet her eventually." Lily had accepted this with the easy faith of children who believed their parents knew what they were doing. Victoria arrived exactly on time, escorted by Helen. The veil was different today, wedding white and somehow even thicker, falling like snowfall over her face and shoulders. She wore a simple dress beneath it, elegant but understated. The ceremony itself took 9 minutes. The officiant spoke words about commitment and partnership that felt hollow in Carter's mouth when he repeated them. Victoria's voice was barely audible. They didn't kiss. Richard had arranged it so the officiant simply said, "You may now acknowledge your union." And they both nodded. Lily clapped enthusiastically. Richard watched from a chair, looking like the ghost Victoria claimed to be. Afterward, there was cake that no one really ate, and champagne Carter didn't drink. Lily wheeled herself over to Victoria, who'd retreated to a corner of the garden near the hedges. Carter watched, ready to intervene if needed. "Hi," Lily said brightly. "I'm Lily. You're my stepmom now, right?" Victoria's hands tightened on themselves. "I suppose I am." "That's so cool. My friend Jessica has a stepmom, but she's mean. Are you mean?" Victoria seemed genuinely at a loss. "I don't think so." "Good. Dad says you're really shy. That's okay. I used to be shy too. But then I got sick and doctors poke you all the time so you get used to people." Lily tilted her head, studying the veil with open curiosity. "Does the veil help with the shy?" Carter started forward, but Victoria raised a hand slightly. "Stop." She crouched down to Lily's level, the veil brushing the ground. "Yes," she said quietly. "It helps." "Cool. I wear this." Lily tapped her oxygen tube. "And it helps me breathe. We both have things that help." She smiled. "I think we'll be friends." Victoria didn't respond for a long moment. Then, barely audible, "I think we might." Carter moved in then, gently steering Lily away. "Time for your meds, kiddo?" Lily waved goodbye to Victoria and let herself be wheeled back to the car. Victoria stayed crouched by the hedge for a while after, not moving. Richard approached her, said something Carter couldn't hear. Victoria shook her head and walked back into the house alone. That night, Carter moved his few belongings into the East Wing's guest room. Helen showed him around. His room was large, anonymous, with furniture that looked expensive and unused. Victoria's room was 3 doors down. The door stayed closed. Lily's surgery happened on Monday morning at 6 a.m. Carter sat in the waiting room for 8 hours, watching the clock and trying not to think about every terrible possibility. Richard had arranged for the best cardiac surgeon in the state, a man named Foster, who spoke in calm certainties and didn't promise miracles. "The defect is repairable. The success rate is high. But she's been living with this for 8 years. Her heart has adapted in ways that make surgery complicated." Foster had looked at Carter with something like sympathy. "I'll do everything I can." When Foster finally emerged at 2 p.m., his mask was down, and he was smiling. "She did beautifully. The repair is solid. She'll need monitoring, but barring complications, she should make a full recovery." Carter's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the waiting room chair and put his face in his hands. He didn't cry. He'd forgotten how somewhere along the way. But his shoulders shook, and his breath came in gasps that might have been sobs if they had sound. A nurse brought him water. Helen appeared from somewhere, said Richard had sent her to make sure everything went well. Carter managed to nod thanks. When they let him into recovery, Lily was asleep, small and pale against white sheets, but breathing steadily without the oxygen tube for the first time in months. Carter sat beside her bed and held her hand. "You're okay," he whispered. "You're going to be okay." He called Victoria's phone. Richard had given him the number and left a message. "The surgery went well. Lily's stable. Thought you'd want to know." He didn't expect a response. 3 hours later, his phone buzzed. A text. "I'm glad. Tell her I said congratulations on being brave." Carter stared at the message, then typed back, "I will." The weeks that followed fell into an unexpected rhythm. Carter spent days at the hospital with Lily, nights in the East Wing, trying not to feel like an intruder. Victoria remained invisible. A presence suggested only by closed doors and the sound of footsteps late at night when she thought everyone was asleep. But small things began to shift. Carter started cooking dinner in the massive kitchen, simple meals that reminded him of the apartment he'd left behind. Helen would take a tray up to Victoria's room, and more often than not, it would come back empty. "She's eating more," Helen mentioned one evening. "First time in years she's finished a full meal." Carter didn't know what to do with that information, so he just kept cooking. One night, unable to sleep, Carter sat in the hallway outside his room with a book he wasn't really reading. Around midnight, he heard Victoria's door open. She emerged in the dim light, veil in place even now, and froze when she saw him. "I didn't mean to disturb you," she said quietly. "You didn't. Can't sleep in new places." Carter closed the book. "Takes me a while to adjust." Victoria stood there, clearly weighing whether to retreat or continue. Finally, she moved closer, though she kept her distance. "Lily, she's recovering well?" "Better than I hoped. She'll be home in a few days." "That's good." Victoria's hands twisted together. "I've been thinking about what she said at the wedding, about us both having things that help. She's perceptive, sometimes too much. No, she's right. This," Victoria gestured to the veil. "It helped for a long time, kept me safe. But I'm starting to wonder if safe is the same as living." She sat down against the opposite wall, keeping the hallway between them. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why aren't you angry?" "You're trapped here because of my father's manipulation. You sold your future for your daughter's life. Most people would resent that." Carter considered the question. I made a choice. Maybe not a great one, but it was mine. And Lily's alive because of it. Hard to be angry about that. He looked at the veil, trying to see through it to the person underneath. What about you? You're trapped here too. I've been trapped here for 5 years. At least now there's someone else in the cage. She said it without bitterness, just fact. That's something, I suppose. They sat in silence for a while, the hallway dim and quiet around them. Then Victoria said, "The dinners you've been making, they're good. Better than anything the chef used to prepare. They're just simple food. Nothing fancy. Simple is good. I'd forgotten what simple felt like." She stood slowly. "I should let you sleep. But maybe we could do this again. Just sit. Talk about nothing important." "I'd like that." Victoria nodded and disappeared back into her room. Carter sat in the hallway for a long time after, thinking about cages and choices and the strange mercy of finding someone else in the dark. When Lily came home 2 weeks later, the house transformed around her joy. She explored every room she was allowed in, marveling at the space and the luxury and the garden that seemed to go on forever. Helen doted on her, and even Richard, during his brief visits, softened in her presence. Victoria remained elusive, but Lily caught glimpses, a figure in a doorway, a veil disappearing around a corner. "She's like a mystery," Lily told Carter one evening, "but a nice mystery, not a scary one." The midnight conversations became routine. Carter would sit in the hallway with a book, and Victoria would emerge, and they'd talk about small things, the weather, what Lily had done that day, memories of before everything changed. Victoria never removed the veil, never revealed more than her voice and her careful movements. But slowly, incrementally, she became less ghost and more person. She asked Carter about his work, about what it was like raising Lily alone, about whether he missed his old life. He answered honestly, which seemed to surprise her. "Most people lie to make themselves look better," she said one night. "I'm too tired to lie. Takes too much energy." "I envy that. I've been lying so long I don't remember what truth feels like." "What are you lying about?" Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "That I'm fine with this, with hiding, with being invisible. My father thinks he's protecting me, but really he's just built me a prettier prison." Her voice cracked slightly. "And I let him, because I was too afraid to see what I'd become." Carter set down his book. "You could leave. The house, I mean. Go outside. You're not actually locked in." "I am, though. Just not with physical locks." She pulled her knees to her chest, veil pooling around her. 5 years is a long time to hide. I don't know how to stop anymore. Maybe you start small, one step at a time. Like what? Like taking off the veil. Not everywhere. Not all the time. Just somewhere safe, with someone who won't judge. Carter kept his voice gentle. "I know I'm a stranger, but I'm also the only other person in this cage. Might be nice to be seen by someone." Victoria's breath caught. "You want to see my face. I want you to want to show me. There's a difference." He stood slowly. "Think about it. No pressure, but the offer stands." He went to his room, leaving her in the hallway. He didn't know if it was the right thing to say, but it was honest, and honesty was all he had left to give. Richard died 3 weeks later. The decline had been swift. One day talking about business strategy, the next barely conscious. Carter sat with him at the end because Victoria couldn't bring herself to watch her father disappear. "Take care of her," Richard whispered through the morphine haze. "Not because I'm paying you, just because she deserves someone who will." "I will," Carter promised, and meant it. The funeral was small, dignified, everything Richard would have wanted. Victoria stood at the graveside in black, veil darker than Carter had ever seen it. She didn't cry, at least not visibly. Lily held Carter's hand, and asked quiet questions about heaven. Carter gave answers he wasn't sure he believed. After everyone left, Victoria stayed by the grave. Carter waited nearby, giving her space but staying within reach. When she finally turned away, she walked past him without speaking and disappeared into the house. For 2 days, Victoria didn't emerge from her room. Carter left food outside her door, simple things, comfort food, and most of it went untouched. On the 3rd day, he knocked gently. "Victoria, I'm not coming in, but I'm here if you need anything." Silence. He sat down against the wall. "I lost someone too, my wife, Lily's mom. She didn't die, she just left. Came home one day and she was gone. Left a note saying she couldn't handle being a mother anymore, couldn't handle the medical bills and the stress and the fear. He'd never told anyone this, not even Lily. I was angry for a long time. Then I was sad. Then I was just tired. Tired of being angry and sad when Lily needed me to be more than that." He heard movement behind the door. "I'm not saying you should stop grieving. Your father just died. You get to be sad as long as you need. But when you're ready to not be alone with it, I'm here. Lily's here. You don't have to carry it by yourself." More movement. Then Victoria's voice, muffled through wood. "Why do you care?" "Because you're my wife. Fake or not, that means something to me." The door opened slowly. Victoria stood there, veil slightly askew, eyes red-rimmed beneath the fabric. "I don't understand you. I'm not complicated. I just keep my promises and try to be decent." She studied him for a long moment, then stepped back. "Would you come in, just for a minute?" Carter entered her room for the first time. It was stark, minimalist, almost empty despite its size. A single photograph sat on the nightstand, Richard and a younger Victoria before the accident, both smiling. "He was trying to protect me," Victoria said quietly. "From judgment, from cruelty, from the world. But in protecting me, he made me disappear." She turned to Carter. "I don't want to disappear anymore. I don't want to be a ghost in my own life." "Then don't be. It's not that simple. It starts that simple. One choice, then another, then another." Carter kept his distance. "Your father's gone now. The only person keeping you in that veil is you. And I'm not saying that to be cruel. I'm saying it because you have a choice now. Maybe for the first time in 5 years." Victoria's hands went to the veil's edge, trembling. "I don't remember what I look like anymore. I haven't looked in a mirror since the accident. What if it's as bad as I imagine? What if I'm a monster?" "Then you're a monster. But you're still Victoria, and that's enough." He moved toward the door. "Take your time, but know that whenever you're ready, I'll be here, and I won't run." He left her there, door open behind him. That night, the midnight conversation didn't happen. But Carter heard crying through the walls, raw and desperate, the sound of someone finally letting grief have its way. He didn't interrupt. Some things you have to face alone before you can face them with someone else. 3 days later, Victoria emerged in daylight for the first time since the funeral. She found Carter in the kitchen making lunch, Lily at the table drawing. "Can I talk to you both?" Her voice was steadier than Carter had heard it in weeks. Lily looked up, smiled. "Hi, Victoria. Want to see my drawing?" "In a moment." Victoria moved carefully into the room, veil in place, but somehow sitting differently, less like armor and more like a choice. "I've been thinking about what you said, Carter, about choices and disappearing and being a ghost." She took a breath. "I don't want to hide anymore, but I'm terrified of being seen." "That's normal," Carter said simply. "I want to try something. Something I haven't done in 5 years." Her hands shook as they reached for the veil's edge. "I want to show you my face, both of you. Because you're my family now, fake marriage or not, and families should be able to see each other. She looked at Lily. Is that okay with you? Lily nodded seriously. I don't care what you look like. You're nice. That's what matters. Victoria laughed, sound watery with emotion. Out of the mouths of children. She glanced at Carter. Are you ready? Only if you are. Victoria closed her eyes and slowly, carefully, lifted the veil up and over her head. Carter saw her face for the first time. The scars were there, lines along her left cheek, discoloration near her jaw, tissue that had healed tight near her ear. But she wasn't disfigured. She wasn't monstrous. She was just a woman with scars, with dark eyes that held years of pain, with a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. She was beautiful in the way that broken things put back together are beautiful, not despite the cracks, but because of them. Lily studied her with open curiosity, then smiled. You're pretty, and your scars aren't even that bad. My friend Jake has a way bigger scar from falling off his bike. Victoria started crying and laughing at the same time. Well then, I suppose I'm lucky. Carter set down the knife he'd been using to cut vegetables. You've been hiding this? Yes. Barely a whisper. Victoria. He shook his head slowly. You're not disfigured. You're scarred. There's a difference. A big one. You're... He stopped, finding the right words. You're just you. And that's not something to hide. She covered her face with her hands. Shoulders shaking. 5 years. I've been hiding for 5 years because my father saw a monster, and I believed him. But you, both of you, you just see me. Lily got up, crossed to Victoria, and wrapped her arms around her waist. You're my family. Families don't hide. Victoria sobbed, holding Lily like she was the only solid thing in the world. Carter watched them, feeling something shift in his chest. This wasn't the transaction he'd agreed to. This wasn't the arrangement Richard had orchestrated. This was something real, something that had grown in the dark places of grief and fear and finally found light. That evening, after Lily went to bed, Victoria found Carter on the back patio. She wasn't wearing the veil. I keep thinking I should put it back on, she admitted. 5 years of habit doesn't disappear in a day. You can wear it if you want. Or not. It's your choice now. I don't want to. She sat down beside him. I want to try living without it. I want to see the world, and have the world see me. I want to stop being afraid of my own reflection. She turned to him. I need to ask you something. Okay. The prenup is void now that my father's gone. You're free to leave. Take the money. Take Lily. Start over somewhere normal. You don't owe me anything. She met his eyes directly for the first time. But if you want to stay, I want it to be because you want to, not out of obligation or pity. I want this to be real, if it's going to be anything at all. Carter looked at her, really looked. Seeing the scars and the courage and the woman who'd spent 5 years in darkness and was finally stepping toward the light. I want to stay. Why? Because somewhere between midnight conversations and watching you be brave enough to take off that veil, I stopped seeing this as a transaction. I don't know exactly when it happened, but I know I care about you, Victoria, and I want to see who you become now that you're not hiding. He reached over, took her hand carefully. So yeah, I want to stay. For real. If you'll have me. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I'll have you. Gladly. She squeezed his hand. We'll figure it out as we go. Both of us learning how to live again. Sounds like a plan. They sat together as evening turned to night, holding hands and talking about small things that felt enormous. What came next? What they wanted. Who they might become. Inside, Lily slept peacefully in a house that had finally transformed from cage to home. The veil sat folded on Victoria's dresser, not discarded, but set aside, a reminder of where she'd been, but not where she was going. In the morning, Victoria joined them for breakfast in the sunny kitchen, face bare, smile tentative, but real. "Good morning," she said. "Morning," Carter replied, pouring coffee. Lily looked up from her cereal. "You look really happy today, Victoria." "I think I am, for the first time in a long time." "Good. You should be happy. We all should." Lily went back to her cereal with the easy wisdom of children who understood complicated things better than adults. Carter and Victoria exchanged glances across the table, something warm and real and hopeful passing between them. The transaction was over. The arrangement was finished. What remained was a choice they were both making every day, to build something genuine from the ashes of grief and fear. A family that hadn't been planned, but had happened anyway. A marriage that started as a lie, but was becoming truth. And two people learning that sometimes the best things in life are the ones you never saw coming.